Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture Podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about How It Ends on Netflix.
It's a very ominous title there for not a very ominous movie.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert, if you have not yet caught the Netflix original movie, it is on Netflix. I cannot recommend that you catch it on Netflix.
Yeah.
But we'll get there to the review. Spoiler alert for our review. So, summary. Generic white guy flies to Chicago for a business trip and has to have dinner with his maybe future in-laws and ask for his girlfriend's hand in marriage from her father, which doesn't go well because her father is the basic toxic masculinity father type. And the world ends, and he has to try to get back to his girlfriend in Seattle.
All right. Okay. You almost pulled a Kathy. You were going to tell the whole entire story.
I basically just wanted to say generic white guy. So
you could have just said that. A story about a generic white guy. The end.
The end.
So the story is about a generic white guy. And his adventures trying to cross the country to see his
Baby
mama, who is going to also be his fiance, but in a weird way, he still has to ask for the father's blessing. Which, and nowadays, do people still do that? I don't know, but anyway,
I think so.
And the troubles along the way. The end.
I asked your mom and your grandpa.
Yeah, but I mean, now, especially when they're an older couple, they're already in adulthood, they've already established an adult life, they already live together. Do you still have to ask for the blessing? You know what I mean?
Well, after the boat adventure, I'm guessing so.
Whatever that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people tuned out by the time he actually explained it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I said whatever that was.
So the review definitely gets a curse. The funny thing is, when we watched the movie, we watched it the night after we watched Extinction. So we mentioned last week about how Extinction was just, awful. And how it was just poorly written and, poorly acted, but the twist was the best thing about the entire movie. This movie, the more that I read reviews, the more that I kind of dove deeper into this movie, the more I was like, oh my goodness, this is so very shallow.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie. Mm-mm. And I think it's just our timing of it made it seem like it was a better movie. It was entertaining for what it was.
Yeah, it was
at that time. It
was better than Extinction for sure.
Yeah. So my review is that it gets a curse.
Okay. I am a little indifferent. I mean, if you want to watch a movie, this is one you could watch, right? I mean,
it did have to get some good reviews. That's why it has 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
So
yeah, so if you want to watch a movie, this is one.
If you want to watch a movie, this is one. That should be on the title line as the positive blurb.
Yeah.
Kathy from Patron Saints of Pop Culture Podcast. If you want to watch a movie, this is one.
Yes, exactly. Another great liner from me. Yes. We'll just add that to our
lexicon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I wanted more. Like the premise was good. I can see where they were trying to go with it. The movie was relatively short, so definitely could have built upon what was happening
in
2
the
world.
hours.
Well, Well, it felt really short. Maybe it was Extinction that was really short. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, they could have definitely done some more with it. Maybe made it like a 3-parter or something like that. There was just so much that could have been better.
Yeah, I agree. Forrest Whitaker kind of felt like he fell asleep halfway through the movie.
Yeah, it was almost like he was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
I know. An Academy Award-winning actor. Has he won one?
I don't know.
I know he's been nominated a few times. But Academy Award nominee actor that just kind of fell asleep halfway through the movie.
Yeah, it's like everybody just kind of gave up.
But if you're wanting to watch a movie, this is one. Well, and I think this is what I'm going to talk about here is that there is a lot to say about authorial intent, as in the author's intent for this movie.
The director, the writer, yeah.
Yeah, and versus the audience reception of the movie. I'm gonna talk about this transition here in a second, but I really saw what I saw in the movie was this vision of this transition from just being your own human being kind of thing into being a parent, and there are a lot in the movie that kind of speaks to that, but it was hidden behind a lot of just junk.
Yeah.
There was so much toxic masculinity in it. There was so much just why does this man have such a bad relationship with his daughter's boyfriend? Like,
yeah.
They've been dating for a long time. Why does he have such a bad relationship?
And why does he only care about finding his daughter and doesn't care about his sons that he has? Which he mentions once, and then they're done.
Exactly. And why does he get offended by his daughter's boyfriend cussing in front of his wife?
Yeah, I don't. Very weird. Very, very weird. I don't know.
I've never really been in that kind of situation, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't. That's something that I think. As a writer myself, this is some advice I see that writers give to other writers is that don't tell, show, which for writing is difficult because you got to try to figure out how to not just sit there and describe a world, but to show a world in a way. And I think that this writer, the writer of the script, was trying to do that. Was that, oh yeah, they've got a bad relationship and, it doesn't really matter why. But in so doing, he asked the question, why do they have a bad relationship? Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems with this is that it hides his original vision, which I think is this transition. And, he was just very heavy-handed in his metaphors and his similes. And,
which I didn't realize until when you were talking about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that?
Well, this is the thing, is that the entire thing revolves around this pregnancy. And this, at the very beginning, you see the very first shot is the ultrasound.
Which, by the way, that ultrasound picture, she would have been showing that she was pregnant.
Oh, I know.
She had a flat tummy. Like, there's no way that she would not be showing at least a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah, that's a good maybe 13, 15 weeks along. Mm-hmm. And you're showing by that time.
At least a little bit.
Yeah. And see, well, I'll get into the transition here in a minute, but the heavy-handed similes and metaphors just, it takes you out of the writing. And I'll compare this with last week when we talked about the magicians, that Lev's work is much more subtle in what he's doing with his allegory. Mm-hmm. With his similes, with his metaphors, that you can pull out more than what he originally intended.
Yep.
And here, I think people got so bogged down with the stuff that he didn't intend that what he actually intended got lost. Wouldn't you say? Didn't you get lost in this a little bit?
Well, it wasn't that I was...
You just said that, like you didn't realize this until I made mention of it earlier.
Yeah, I don't, but I wouldn't say that I was I didn't feel lost. It was more like I just felt bored. He didn't give me enough intellectual juice to like,
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't give me like anything to think about.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I ultimately felt like was the author's intent on this it was about the transition from not being a parent into being a parent. From being how it's a rite of passage for like a young
journey,
man.
Would you say?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's very heavy-handed. Like he put in almost every single like cliche metaphor that he could for this.
Yeah.
For this transition, and that it's a journey that like for instance, the tremors are like the contractions of birth pains and stuff like this.
Yes, I am very aware of birth pains.
No, I know, but I'm explaining for the audience.
Oh, okay.
For whoever listens to our podcast. Kind of this loss of power, like at the very beginning, it's this loss of power, that feeling of being lost and not knowing what to do. And it's all very heavy handed on this thing. And by the way, he does this with his character names. The main character's name is Will Younger. Like seriously, could you get any more like, my character is going through a transition, a rite of passage into adulthood and becoming a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the other thing is Tom, who is Forrest Whitaker's character. Tom's last name is Sutherland, so you knew that he had an actor in mind for this character. He wanted Kiefer Sutherland. He wanted Jack Bauer to be in this movie. He wanted Jack Bauer to be the dad.
Yep.
Like, he watched way too much season 1 of 24. So this is like, I wrote down so much of these things that I found throughout the movie that had to do with this, like the coming to terms with your parents and your partner's parents, and like trying to figure out what kind of parent you're going to be, trying to rid yourself of the toxic parenting that was happening in your life and in your partner's life, kind of thing. We also had overcoming that. We also had overcoming the toxic masculinity to become your own idea of what a man is. But I think that the author's vision of this was also very flawed.
Yeah.
Like, he had not met any other dads or something. He had not met any other people who have gone through this transition into parents, into being a dad.
Or maybe he has all he has experienced maybe has been the more like toxic. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Toxic version of what a man should be and what a father should be, so.
Well, and this is like, you see this throughout the movie, mm-hmm. like how Will is not seen as a man because he couldn't stand up to the guys who were going to like scam him at the gas station, and that he didn't know how to load a gun, all these other things that, there was like this version of masculinity. And no, that's not what makes a man.
No.
Like, seriously, we've gone over this before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was so bad. I think what really bothers me, one, there's a couple of points. One, the whole don't curse in front of my wife. Hello, she's heard everything. It's not
especially if she's married to you.
Yeah, and plus she didn't seem offended. Like, she wasn't like, she was just like,
yeah,
whatever.
It's not the 1950s.
Exactly. Also, the fact, as I mentioned before, that he was so hard set on finding his daughter. He didn't like really care what happened to his sons. He wasn't wondering what happened to him. He wasn't like worried about what they were doing. He didn't even ask like, oh no, like, are they going to be fine? Are they going to be okay? Nothing. So the fact that he was like focusing on the delicate woman,
yeah,
Yeah, and the way that he treated Ricki too, but we'll get into that as well.
That's the driving force for this whole narrative, which I think the narrative in and of itself is flawed. Mm-hmm. The author's intent on this narrative was flawed. Yeah. And I think that's what led to the audience reception of this movie.
Yeah.
Was that you couldn't really get to the author's vision because you had to slog through all of this just horribleness of the flawed part of his narrative.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why audience reception is important, because that's how to rework your process. You know, if you give it to one of your friends who's also going through this transition into parenthood and saying, "Hey, can you read this over? Can you tell me, what I can fix?" Like some of these things that he probably could have done before making this into a movie, which, how in the world did he get Forrest Whitaker for this?
I don't know. He hasn't been in anything in a while, right? Maybe that's why.
No, he was in Black Panther.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe he was like, "Yeah, I don't need the money because I'm in Black Panther. I'll just do some, off-the-wall stuff."
Then again, Martin Freeman was also does a lot of independent films, and he was also in Black Panther.
True. Man, I don't know.
And we talked about Cargo, which was another independent movie, and a much better take on this whole transition into how do you take care of.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's my take. I think that the authorial intent and the audience reception has a lot to do with each other, that they go hand in hand. I think this has a lot to do with how narratives have stood the test of time, is when they're maybe they have some flaws, but ultimately they are true to that experience. They're true to the experience of transition into parenthood. They're true to caring so much about somebody that you have to go do whatever it takes to make sure that they're okay.
But it's not terrifying and I don't know. It's not. I feel like some people feel as though the transition into parenthood is your life is ending. This is how it ends.
Yeah.
Roll credits. Yeah. But it's not. It's not true.
No, it's not true.
It's not how it ends. It's just
this is why I'm saying
story.
that his vision was flawed.
Yeah.
The entire narrative was flawed because the original vision was flawed.
Yeah, I agree.
And that the whole driving off into hand in hand with the smoke billowing behind them, it was kind of like that birth process. And I'm like, okay, this is about that transition into parenthood, but it's bad.
Yeah. And why the heck are they going to Canada? Why aren't they going to try to find her family? Or what about his family? Do they ever make mention to his parents?
Yes, that's the house that they stop in.
Oh yeah,
Idaho.
the dad. Yeah, but why isn't he more concerned about where his dad is? Especially since his dad's house was stocked with stuff.
And the luggage was in the living room.
Yeah.
It means his dad suddenly disappeared.
Yeah. Which also could be another, parent heavy-handed allegory of, the disappearing father.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, they're, it's all, everything in there is, really heavy-handed. It's all pointing to this, and the theme was just so flawed to begin with that the narrative just fell apart.
Well, and there was, like I said, there was a lot of good points. For example, when they got to that little town, where they were only letting a few people in and that kind of stuff. They could have explored that a little bit more. Why is the town being like this? Did something happen? Are they just being more cautious? Tell me more. I want to know more. And we didn't get anything from that,
Well, and one of the reviews that I read pointed out that all of a sudden, less than 24 hours after a blackout and a natural disaster hit, that all of a sudden Americans are become Mad Max and decide that we're going to shoot each other for gas and for cars.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure that we're not going to devolve that fast.
know.
Granted, it is 2018, and we're
kind of crazy right now.
Yeah, but I really don't think that human beings are that horrible.
No. In fact, like when it comes to natural disasters, time and time again, the community comes together to help each other out. Mm-hmm. You know, that's our initial gut reaction is, we got to help.
There was a great show about this. It got canceled early, but check out Jericho if you can find it anywhere. It was streaming on Netflix a long time ago, but fantastic show about how community deals with the aftermath of an apocalypse.
Yep.
Oh, it was a nuke being dropped on Denver. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was like Jericho, Kansas or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed the show. Anyway, moving on.
So there are good stories out there.
Yes.
With this scenario. One thing that wasn't just me, there was a lot of reviews out there that were wanting more as well, is I wanted more Ricki. Like, I wanted to know so much more about her. She was so much more interesting than just like...
Than generic white guy?
Than generic white guy. And, you know, surly father-in-law, you know? Yeah. Like, she had more juice to her. We don't see her representation very much in media at all. So it was something that it would have been a much better movie if they had focused on her storyline and what her motives were and what she wanted to actually do. Mm-hmm. I honestly think it would be better because it's not, like I said, it's not a story we see all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know, just I wanted to know her experience. The fact that we don't find out why she's going to LA. I mean, they make like an offhanded joke about her wanting to be a rapper. Mm-hmm. But we don't really find out her motives besides the fact that we see that she's arguing with a guy who we don't know who the relationship is yet. Speculation out there is that he's probably like not an elder, but like an older like family member. Yeah. Whether that be a father or an uncle or like a much older brother or cousin or something like that. And she just wanted to get away. But why was she focused on LA? Like, did she have like a childhood dream of becoming an actress? Or like, is that where she thought that like dreams come true or something? I don't know. Like, I wanted to know more about that. It would just make a better story. I don't know.
Well, the Magic Kingdom is in Anaheim. So,
you're right. It is. Yeah. And she was a little too far away from Florida. So she had to go to the smaller version.
Yeah. Well, okay.
And to be honest, growing up where I did, like I grew up with folks who, there was a reservation like relatively close to where I lived. Like it was seriously like a 20-minute drive if you wanted to go down there. And then in Montana, there's a reservation's kind of like scattered throughout the state. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I went to school with Ricki. Not really, but, you know, I went to school with like Ricki types. And I went to school with people who kind of had that similar background. People who are native. And believe it or not, they still exist. I know it's weird that I have to say that out loud. I know a lot of our listeners are probably like, well, yeah. Yeah. But I am moving it from like around the country. Not when I was in Colorado, but when I was living in New York, and then also another person here in Ohio, I had to actually tell them that Native people still exist. Like they are people who are still alive today, which is like really bizarre to think about.
And people who are much more native than I am. Like I'm a quarter native, and there are people who are much more native than I am.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other issue if you want to go talk about like why the heck do we have to like define somebody who's native by how much blood they are of being native and like what problems that entails, and that's a whole other issue. But anyway. Yeah. We hardly ever see this kind of like actual representation of what it's like to be native. And she was pretty close. I mean, of course, no one is going to be 100%. There's always going to be a little bit of, you know, racist tinge to it, of course, you know, but where was the last time you saw a modern day version of a Native person being represented in media.
And represented well.
Yeah.
I mean...
Crickets. I hear crickets.
The last... Cargo, you had the whole Aborigine tribe.
Well, I'm talking about more, United States.
Yeah. I can't even think of any recent movies where we had any good representation. Which, I mean...
Or TV.
Then you had Johnny Depp as...
Oh gosh.
I don't even want to bring up the Lone Ranger, but...
I was mad for everybody in that,
No, as soon as the trailers came out, I was like, oh, nope, not going to go see that movie.
Who thought that was a good idea? Who was like, oh, I know, Johnny Depp is good. He's just one of those actors that like, oh, his name is synonymous with money, so we might as well cast him, I think.
See, and I don't think that I've seen him in anything since Pirates of the Caribbean where he was not Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is the same character ever since that movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think, another
Sweeney Todd. He was still even Jack Sparrow as Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh my gosh. Kimmy, what is it called? The Netflix movie is Netflix TV show is a comedy.
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, Kimmy Schmidt. Yeah, Unbreakable. So that is not very good representation at all.
Well, the parents, yes, but not her.
No, because even the parents are kind of like still a trope.
Yeah, yeah.
They're probably obviously the closer than, I can't remember her name, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Like they're definitely closer than Jacqueline, but they're still a trope. Whereas like Ricki, she was like a legit person. She legit had motives. And she, obviously she had a more interesting backstory. Like, she knows cars. How does she know cars? Like, did she learn about it growing up? Like, did she learn about it from, like, a parent figure? Or, like, maybe a grandparent? Or did she go to school for this? Who knows? I don't know. Because we didn't have enough Ricki. And I want more Ricki.
And, like, does she own the shop? Or is that her family's shop? Or...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, like...
This is what I'm talking about. The author asked the questions that he should have just been showing us.
Exactly. There's too much out there for me. There's too many questions out there for me to actually be satisfied with what happened. Like, I don't mind having there be some questions near the end, like, what happened to them? Did they live? Did they make it to where they need to go? Like, what happened? Like, I'm okay with questions at the end, because that gives us, the imagination as, like, the watcher to figure it out. But there was so many questions along the way in the movie that I was just like, why?
There was one review that speculated that it was left open for a 2, how it ends 2. And no. We'll call the sequel to that Walking Dead season 2.
Never gonna happen. Where was I gonna go from there? Man, I just lost track, but it was gonna be a good point.
Because I'm just saying, pregnant woman after the end of the world on a farm.
Oh yeah, yep.
So
you're right.
Walking Dead season 2.
Sure, yeah. So anyway, because there's not a lot of representation, especially in America, of actual people or actual Native people. The reason why I'm tripping on that word is sometimes, depending on who you ask, some people like Native, some people like a First Nation, some still like to go by Native American. Mm-hmm. So, but I prefer to go by the more agreed upon term, I guess. Question mark. I don't know if it's changed since I've talked to somebody last, but I should have researched that more. Anywho, that actually brings up my next point. So I'm going to kind of task you guys with a little homework. I think I tasked you guys with a little bit of homework last time, maybe, or maybe the time before.
Well,
I'm not sure.
All we had were questions last week.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. So why don't you, as a listener, try to learn about the local tribes around your area, if there's any. And if there aren't any, maybe kind of learn about the history of the tribes who used to be there. Mm-hmm. Because there were, if there's not anymore, us white men decided to push them out, and just kind of learn about their history, learn about what happened to them. I think that's a good thing to do, kind of learn about exactly what happened, because a lot of people don't really realize they've heard about like the Trail of Tears, and that's pretty much it.
For one class in their American history class.
Yep. But they don't realize like how devastating that was. Like I've talked to people and they're like, oh yeah, it was, it was just kind of like a caravan. And I'm like, it was not a caravan. like so many people died. So many people died.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't just like, okay, everybody, let's pack up our stuff and let's go on a road trip. Like it wasn't like that at all. Like these were people who were forced to march. It was the equivalent of, I would compare it to like during World War II when the Jews were forced to march like really long distances to their death. Imagine that, but imagining it on American soil, happening to the native people here.
Well, I mean, yeah, the U.S. Army was pushing them and pushing them harder than they needed to.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, this is something that.
Well, it shouldn't have moved them in the first place, but anyway. Well,
and this is the thing that, like a lot of countries kind of go through with this is that they are responsible for a lot of these atrocities, and a lot of them own it and say, "Yeah, we did this as a country, and we're trying to be better now. We're trying to be better people, and we're trying to make up for that." I mean, that's how Germany now teaches World War II is that, yeah, we as a country were responsible for this. And we were. But
here's the thing. Germany also knows that there's still a lot of work to do.
No, I know.
It's not like, oh, we did this bad thing, but it's okay. We're all good now. Like, no, like they're still teaching their kids, like, this is not acceptable. And we will not become like this again.
Yeah, and there is no penance that can be paid fully for these things. You can't do that. It's not. I mean, that's part of our talk about last week is that you can't fully forgive somebody for some of the things that they've done.
Yeah. So I want you to ask the questions. Okay. I want you to do your own research. I want you to go to, who knows, your library probably has a lot of good resources on your state history, for example. I know the libraries I've been to have. So that might be a good area to kind of search and see what happened to the native people in your state. Are they still there? Are they in reservations? Did they get pushed out? Are they now, for some reason, moved to another state? Because that also happened as well, too. And I think it's really, really important for that to be recognized because so many people don't know their own history, our own country history.
Yeah. Like, how did people move to your city? And did the city get founded before, the people in the area were moved out, were, put on these reservations or what have you?
I know the answer.
Yes.
You don't even have to tell me a city. I'm already going to tell you.
Yeah.
The people who are there first were forced to move. But you might be kind of surprised about what to expect. Some tribes actually were forced to be on the same reservation as other tribes. They have a lot of rich culture that they have actually developed. There's been a big movement to take back, their history and to take back their culture, because for the longest time, the United States had many programs in place to eradicate that. They forced little kids to not speak their native language, to speak only English. They forced kids to dress in white people wear. I want to say Western wear, but I don't really like the term Western wear because Western wear also includes some hints of Native American influence as well too, or Native influence. So I don't know. I kind of don't like it. But anyway.
Well, it's a lot of this, the idealized of the West, of the Wild West.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which, that never happened.
Exactly. Yep.
And there was no whole, cowboys v. Indians thing. Mm-hmm. And, like, that even in itself is a horrible term.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't like that. I mean, there might have been, like, one or two stories, but here's the thing. There was so many more white people killing Native people than there was Native people killing white people. So white people, surprise, surprise, were the villains.
Yep.
Spoiler alert on that. If you haven't ever read a history book.
Here's the twist. Maybe we should rewatch the movie that the entire time he's a villain. That he should have been kept away from his girlfriend.
That is a good plot twist. Man, Miguel, that would have been a much better movie. But I also encourage you too, like I said, to not just look about your the history in your area, about what happened to the Native people there, but also too, I mean, they are coming out with a lot of new media. For example, there's a lot of new musicians out there who incorporate a lot of modern music with traditional music, which sounds really, really cool and awesome. There's also a lot of artists out there. I'm not just talking about like Canvas, which there is a lot of that out there, which is beautiful and you should appreciate it. But also there's a lot of magazines out there, a lot of books that are published by Native people who want to, you know, bring their culture to a head again. Like they want to embrace their culture and they're trying to claim it again for themselves and for their future.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and more so than, I think it was the early 2000s, late 90s, when there was that movie about the Navajo, which, by the way, the Navajo don't call themselves the Navajo. That's the, the name that we've given to them.
Mm-hmm. The white folks' name.
Yeah. About the code talkers, the wind talkers. Mm-hmm. And I think Nicolas Cage was in that movie. I don't remember.
I don't know. I can't remember.
But it was, about World War II or World War I, and
mm-hmm.
and man, I don't even remember what the whole story is now.
No, okay, so what it was,
what it was,
they had used their native language, as like
I know the plot line.
Oh, well,
I can't remember which war it was for the life of me right now.
Oh, I don't remember. Anyway,
see,
it was one of the ones where we were involved.
Yeah. One of those big world wars that we were involved in.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's out there. There's still people at Standing Rock right now as well, too. So there's still people trying to fight the good fight on that as well, too. Trying to, protect their own land. And they're not just protecting their land. Like, they're also trying to protect just the land in general. The land that you live on as well, too. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even though it's kind of fizzled out a little bit, it's still happening. You still need to send your support. I mean, everybody likes good drinking water. You know what I mean? Like, this is a universal person liking
That's
ordeal.
Also a good reminder of Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water.
Yeah, exactly. What do those have in common? Oh, yeah. Minorities. Come on, people. So yeah, I mean, you might be surprised. You might enjoy it. I mean, I like to enjoy, kind of brings back memories of home and that kind of stuff. I also have like actual family members. I'm not just like saying, oh yeah, I have a half cousin who blah, 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 blah. Like I actually have like family members who are part of, tribes as well too. And I don't know, it just reminds me of home. And I really kind of wish people appreciated it more and knew it existed.
Yeah. Knew
that they existed. Like I said, some people don't even realize that Native people are still around.
Mm-hmm. So what we pulled out from this movie was that whatever the author intends also has to align with audience reception. That if you're writing to an audience, you got to make sure that people in that audience have had the same experience that you have. Mm-hmm. We also wanted more Ricki.
Yeah, we want more Ricki. You know what? Let's just put a petition out there.
Just make a movie about Ricki.
Redo the movie, but have it be focused around Ricki.
This main character, and then Will Younger is a bad guy.
Yeah. No, because in her point of view, too, he was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, she left him for a reason. Like, she left that, you know? Yeah. Anyway, man, I just wish I had more Ricki.
So what we are working on now, we do have next week we are going to be doing Deadpool 2. We've got a lot going on. We're currently watching season 2 of The Magicians, but that's not going to be what's coming up after Deadpool 2 because Kathy still needs to go through book 3 because season 2 pulls in a lot of book 3. Mm-hmm. So we'll be doing that later. And we've still got a lot of movies to watch, and so that's probably going to be what's next after Deadpool 2, like It and Mother.
I'm so excited for the Halloween season.
Yep, and Hereditary, Solo. There's a lot of movies that we have to watch. Ozark season 2 comes out this week, so we'll be getting to that as well soon.
Oh, and also you forgot Iron Fist. Comes out this month, too.
In next month, it's September.
Next month.
Yep.
Hopefully, it's going to be better. I mean, it can't be worse, right?
Yeah.
It can't be worse.
It can be, but it could be like Extinction or this movie.
I don't know. Danny Rand got his hair cut, so it can't be that bad.
All right, so if you have anything to say about today's episode or any of our previous episodes, make sure to find us on social media. We are on Facebook and we are on Twitter. Find us at Real Honest Faith. We are also available by phone. You can send us a voicemail or send us a text at 720-372-3879. And with all that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.